All right, so my name is Paula Diaz, and this is my progress presentation for this month, Portfolio 6. So I'll just jump straight into my three main goals for this month, and it was first to finish developing my personal brand's logo. The second one was to develop a whole brand for PD Ministries. And my final goal was to design print material for my church. And I'll get into a little bit more details with each one as we progress in the presentation. So to start off with the first one, it was to finish developing my personal brand logo. And what I did was I first revisited my brand style guide, which I created a few months before in one of our classes. And just by revisiting this, I just got more inspiration from it, and it really gave me like a clear idea into what I wanted to do. And it just like reminded me of what I'm looking for. So I think this was a great place to start. And doing that, I actually found I had completely forgotten about this, but I already had a logo idea from before, as you can see here to the right. The one that is boxed in is like my main inspiration that I used in creating my logo, and you'll see that with my final logo, which is here. I'm pretty satisfied with it, but maybe not completely satisfied. I feel like there's still some things I need to tweak and move around, but for the most part, I'm happy with it. To the left, you'll see like my main logo, and then the right design or the right logo is basically my watermark. And as you can see again to the on the left side on the top, it's once again the inspiration. And I think I did a pretty good job at mimicking this, and then kind of making it my own as well. And then this other part here, I just kind of played around with my brand colors and my overall design, and just kind of to see what it would look like once it's like stylized and things like that. So I messed around with my brand colors and things like that. And this is what I came up with, just kind of messing around just to see what it looks like. I also added it to my website that I was completing this month. And I like the way that it looks, but once again, I feel like there's still minor tweaks that need to be made, and I would love feedback on that as well. But there is my logo here on my part of my website. And then I've also added the watermark, which you saw in an earlier image. I added that as my favicon, and it actually looked pretty good, and I was pretty happy with that. Going into my second goal, it was to develop a brand for PD Ministries. It's basically a brand, it's mostly a brand that's going to be on a website platform. And it's just going to be a medium used to basically give out print material and just resources like videos on teachings and different things like that. And it was actually for my dad, Paul Diaz, hence the name PD Ministries. And his idea for the logo was really to use his initials as part of the logo, which I'll get into in a little bit. But to start off, I really started looking at some inspiration on Pinterest, and these are kind of like this is the style that I kind of liked, and my client also agreed with me with it. And as you can see, the main three pictures here, the one at the center and the two on the ends, are really more like design based, and then the others were more like just grabbing colors and things like that to see what would work. And in the end, you'll see in a little bit what I came up with. So going back to what I mentioned before, the client really wanted to use his initials, PD, in PD Ministries to make this logo basically. And so I found these logos here, and I pulled a lot of inspiration from these, but obviously I didn't want to copy and make the same thing. This took me a long time to try to come up with a new and creative way of doing this. And basically, this is what I came up with, which I actually was very happy with. As you can see, one of the logos I ended up making, the D is a lot more prominent. And then on the P, on the other logo to the right of this, I'm talking on the first image here. It's basically the P is more prominent. And at the end, my client chose that P. One thing I will say about these logos is that later on, or even the process, I was looking up a lot of logo tutorials and things like that just to get an idea and like really get inspiration from that. And one thing that they did mention was that whenever there's like lines in a logo, those lines or those spaces need to be exaggerated because in a given scenario where the logo needs to be made very small on print material or anything like that, that space usually becomes invisible, or it's like very hard to see that space. It basically disappears. And I think that maybe the spacing that I made is a little bit too like maybe not as spacious as it should be. So I do want to go back and exaggerate that line and that space between that P and D a bit more for those different scenarios that might come up later. So then I just went ahead and messed around. This is still a brand that's still being developed, but I came up with a few style designs and things like that as to how this logo would look on different, like, just content for media and things like that. So here's the first group that I came up with a specific kind of style. As you can see, the logo is, at least on the bottom, you can see that it has a gradient on it. Whereas, like, for example, this other one here, this whole group, it's a little bit more flat. It has a little bit more of a flat design on it. And then this third group, once again, flat design, especially with that P or that logo, as you can see. And maybe the differences don't seem too extreme, but if I go back, you can then see, for example, this first one uses a lot of blurred backgrounds with a bit of grain being used there and gradients as well, whereas this second one is a little bit more flat and simple. And then this last one is flat, but it does have more contrast. You can see that there. And then, all right, moving on to my last goal of this month was to basically design print material for my church. And there was a lot of different things that went on with this goal. And the first one was basically to create a simple handout that would be able to be stapled onto like these brown paper bags that they basically give out. And it was just basically like an infographic almost that would showcase like all the dates that this like would take place, the food pantry days basically. And so that was made there and they've used it now. And then this middle one, I had to make what we call connect cards, which is basically a way for people to sign up, whether that's like to become a member of the church or to volunteer and be part of a type of service that is offered at the church. And then different ones, but the ones that I got through fully making was the first one that you see here, which is the one for volunteering. And as you can see, the front would be the one to the design on the left, and to the right is the back where they would put down all of their information needed to move forward with that person. And then this second one, it was really, I was waiting on the people to give me the information, which is why it wasn't completed, but I did finish the design. So the main thing that's missing here is obviously the content that I'll later on add. And then there's another one that I'll still be making later this month once I'm given the rest of like the information to complete that. But I was pretty happy with the design overall, and I like how they are all kind of like similar, but with using different brand colors and things like that. So I was really happy with those. And then to the right here, there's two different ones, which is a postcard that would be sent to kids. Like if they haven't been assisting their Sunday school classes or being able to attend them, this postcard is basically sent to them, so that just letting them know that we miss them and that we want to see them soon. So that's the first one on the top there. And on the bottom, it was just an info flyer that's going to be printed out. It was supposed to be like a simple flyer that could be easily printed, uses minimum ink, and that could easily be cut out, and passed out. So that was that. And then I just wanted to add a little bit of some extra projects that I was part of this month. So I created some other flyers here, as you can see, for other events with their own personalized style and things like that. And then also two different like short teasers, which basically gave an introduction into different Bible series that we do with the kids. So I'll let that play for a little bit. And they're basically spoofs based on like other brands and things like that. Or I'm not sure how to properly explain that, but I guess you can just see by looking at it. And that's basically it. Lessons learned. The main thing, I feel like I always learn the same thing as well. Every time I do a portfolio class, I just know that there's always room for improvement. There's always room for more. And I guess one thing that I really did learn this month, and whenever I develop like a brand, is really just learning through the process, learning through like making mistakes, learning through research and things like that. Like I really made that like a key thing this month, was to research different things. Like even with the handouts that I made, that I showed the print material for my church, I did a lot of research on those as well, even before I started the design process. And I found like different ways that I could make it not visually appealing, but also like organized properly for people to fill out information on. And then also just, I guess, just like I said, like learning through the process and not being afraid to make mistakes. And once again, I can't wait to like hear feedback because it's something that I love to be able to work on. Like once I have that feedback, I can then go ahead and make changes and learn from that as well. So that's the main lessons that I learned this month, and that's basically it for my Portfolio 6 class. I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and until next time.